Good evening. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Mr. Justin. Trying out something new. Different camera. Hope my audio is coming in well. Because I don't have it monitored. I don't have my mic monitored in my headphones. So I hope it's not too shallow. Let me just look at my settings real quick. Check. It is kind of low. Maybe just bump this up. The fuck's the volume up? Well, I'm gonna see if I can turn up the volume here. Hello. All right. That seems better. Had the volume pretty low. All right. Wicked Scorpion, good to see you, man. So yeah, trying a new setup, different camera. I'm having less distractions on the screen. Nice and simple. We're just going to talk about what's important. And tonight's show is about dominance and discipline. I'm sorry, desire and discipline. Too many D's. So yeah, desire and discipline. And they go hand in hand, right? It's kind of interesting that way because, you know, when I was training, I remember when I was training my first submissive. On orgasm control, okay? And orgasm control is, there's a couple ways to go about it, or ways to understand it or look at it. And one level of orgasm control is basically, it's like a contractual control, a control out of agreement, right? So basically saying, you know, honey, you're not allowed to have an orgasm unless you get my permission. Okay? And that's one form of orgasm control. It's more of like a social level of control. The other form of control is where it gets more deeply psychological and you're dealing with anchors and things of that nature. And they learn to only orgasm when you command it. And this is a much more advanced level of orgasm control, but basically it's conditioning the mind to respond to certain triggers such that no matter how hard they try, they cannot come unless you give them that verbal trigger. All right. It's certainly possible. I've trained a couple of subs based on this. It takes some time, but varied depending on how sexually connected they are to their own bodies and how horny they are. Like the type, because like some women are just very, very sexual, and then some are less so. So that's a factor. But just know that like if you do a conditioning like this, it takes time, and it also takes time to undo it. So I would not advise doing that level of orgasm control with a girl that you don't see long-term time with, because then you're like screwing them up. Okay, it's not fair. But anyways, so those are like the two levels of orgasm control. And the reason why I bring this up, because I was mentioning how desire and discipline kind of go hand in hand. And it was the first time that I had brought up orgasm control to the girl. Now, it wasn't the hypnotic triggers, that sort of orgasm control. It was orgasm control from just the social rules aspect. Okay, that level. And she didn't quite understand it. I mean, she liked the sound of it, but she, needed some more explanation just so she could wrap her head around the idea. And I said, well, look at it this way. Anything in life that's given to us is not cherished quite as much as the things that we work for, right? And that's pretty much for everything. You know what I'm saying? You have anything you want, like a new, I don't know, like a new laptop. Someone could give you a new laptop and you're like, oh, great. But the feeling of joy from that doesn't last quite as long or go as deep versus like if you worked and saved and then you bought yourself that laptop and you're like, yeah, like I created this thing in my life, right? You earned it. You earned that joy. And I think that's pretty much with anything. Like anything that you get to enjoy, if it's earned, it just has a different weight to it. And I explained this to her and she understood. She understood it from that level. And so discipline can make desire stronger. Okay. And this is part of the reason why I'm preaching to you guys to have control over your sexual urges. Not to snuff them out, but to make sure that they're just even, like that they're under your control, right? I mean, if you have like, say like a Bengal tiger trained and it listens to your commands and it's on like a leash, or it doesn't even need a leash, it just listens to you. It's still a fucking killing machine. You know what I'm saying? It's just relaxed and under control, right? And that's kind of how you want your sexuality as a man. You want it to be a fucking 600-pound tiger, right? But it's just under control. It doesn't have to leap and attack everything that walks its path, right? It leaps and attacks when its master says, move now, right? Gives it a single instruction word in some foreign language and it like snaps into action and poof, it's off, you know? You want your sexuality to be like that as a man. This is much more potent, okay? And so this is where desire and discipline also comes into play, like with the self. So, you know, when you have control, right, it sends a different signal, right? Because women know that guys want to fuck, okay? They know. And because of this knowledge, they know that they have power over guys. Like to some degree, they know they have some sort of feminine wiles and they can, you know, make them do stuff, make them give them money, take them places, get angry with them, even pretend like you don't want sex. You know, because guys are simps, and then they learn what simps like behave like and do and talk about and all that stuff. They're like, well, I don't want to like come off as a simp, even though I am a simp, but I'm going to fight it really hard and be like very anti-simp, which just makes you look more like a simp because you're so anti-simp. You're working too hard. You're a try-hard. You know what I'm saying? And that's very obvious. So it's like all of these reactions, right? Sorry. All these reactions are anti-reactions. It's all in the name of pussy. It's all in the name of desire for pussy. And it shifts the tone. It completely shifts the tone from how women really want to enjoy desire. Okay? And there's a thing about being desired by a man who has no control over himself versus being desired by a man who's in full control of himself. It just has a totally different tone. And if it comes across from like a very genuine, authentic place, and I don't mean coming across, but it's actually coming from a place of being genuine and authentic, this really sends a different energy towards the woman. Like it says, sure, yes, I want you, but it doesn't go any further than that. It does not turn into lust. It doesn't turn into need. Okay? It doesn't turn into obsession. It's just, I want you. And to be known only as a simple want becomes exceedingly powerful. Okay? Needs, I mean, like, how often do you think about air? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, unless your work or your studies or your I don't know, your education has something to do with the atmosphere, you probably don't think about air very much. It's a need of yours. If you didn't have it for more than a couple of minutes, you'd be dead. Okay? It's quite a severe need. But the needs we often take for granted, right? I mean, you only think about food when you're hungry, and you don't think. No, most people don't think about, well, where am I going to get it? You just open your refrigerator and, grab some food, right? Or you go to the deli or go to your friend's house or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's there. Sorry, let's make sure there's not an issue. What's up, Efren? Efren. All right, so needs we have to take for granted because they're just here, right? It's part of the whole system of necessity, okay? But desires, they're much more fleeting than needs. They're not part of like the base operating system, okay? And that's what makes them so powerful. When desire is brought into the equation, it stands out, right? It because it triggers different emotions, right? I mean, needs are connected with survival. Desires, they're not connected to survival. They're connected to the emotions that are a little bit higher up. Okay, they're not down here, they're a little bit higher up in here with our desires. And therefore they carry much more weight. Even though needs, without them we would be dead. There's more of an emotional weight when it comes to desires. And so when a man who can control his lust, he controls his impulses, his animalistic desire, like that tiger who's obedient to its master, okay? His desire becomes that much more powerful, right? Because it's not on that level of need. And that's what she can feel. That's the thing that she can feel, right? So what are you guys doing to control your lust? Because that's really what's getting in the way of all of this shit, okay? That's what's stumbling all of these things to, like, you got to ask yourself, all right, how do I move from the wild tiger into this mastered tiger? This tiger that responds to a master, okay? Well, the master has to become present, right? The master who's in your mind, he needs to become a present entity inside you, okay? And he runs shit. Even though the tiger could tear him to pieces, okay? He's smarter than that. He's wiser. He's more cunning, right? And this is the beginnings. This is the beginnings of that, okay? Now, let's flip this over to the women, okay? It pretty much does the same thing, all right? But for them, discipline, there's two levels of it, okay? So the discipline on one level is like a tempering of things, okay? Which causes arousal from anticipation, from being denied, or that the time frame being stretched, okay? Or the intensity being dialed down, okay? Like if you can imagine, like if you ever use like one of those wand vibrators, those things, they're incredibly powerful, okay? Like the Hitachi ones, like you could fucking drive a fucking nail into a piece of wood with those things. And I mean, like, without swinging it, you just turn it on, it goes, it'll drive the fucking nail right into the wood. But if you have that at high and you put that right on their clit, unless they've got like a very sensitive clit, like they're going to be brought to orgasm fairly quickly. It's a very powerful vibration. It'll probably be the type of orgasm that runs away with them. Okay. And ladies, you know what I'm talking about when like you're just chasing after it. It's just out of your grip and it's gone. All right. That's what the Hitachi can do. Okay. Now, if you put it on its very lowest setting, or you don't use that at all, you use like a crappy vibrator. All right. See, you guys want to, like when you're dealing with toys and stuff, controlling the dragon. Let me ask you a question, Derek. Does this have to do with, oh, what is it called? I just got this book. It's like something about the jade dragon. It's like this old Taoist sexual, like sex magic, but within the self. It's not about casting spells or anything like that. It's like this Taoist energy control, something about the jade dragon. And then the female side is called the white tigress. And it's like these practices. It's like kung fu, but like for your internals, like qigong or something like that. But if that's what you're talking about, that'd be really cool. But let me know. So back to the toys. When you're toy shopping, you should have some good toys, okay? Like that are expensive, well built, like they have got customer service, not just some like random company from China on Amazon, okay? Have the good shit, but also have crummy ones, okay? Like where the pulses from the rhythm are not very close together. So instead of having like a smooth buzzing feeling, it's like a thumping feeling. And like, so the wavelengths are further apart. So it has like a thumping. It's like a mini jackhammer. And it's not very pleasant. When it's got closer wavelengths and it's like a buzzing feeling, this is, in general is much more pleasant for women. But you should have those crummy ones because like pizza, even the bad pizza is pretty good. But there's just better pizza, right? That like make you explode, right? But the shitty ones are like, yeah, all right, I'll take it. Like whatever, Have those whatever vibrators because using those is just enough to stimulate, to bring into arousal, but it's not pleasant enough to bring them further beyond that. And this, like I was getting with the stretching, okay, and discipline, all right? Discipline can be brought out with time and intensity. So if you lower the intensity and stretch out the time, i.e. by using a shitty vibrator that doesn't really perform very well, that will definitely not get her off regardless of like what you do with it, just because it was designed poorly, it'll just keep her there in this like aching limbo, right? And you can keep her there for quite a while before she gets frustrated, okay? Or just from the vibrations, things just go numb. But that's a form of discipline, okay? And the way you can utilize this decreasing of intensity but stretching out time is you could do it in so many different places, so many ways, okay? Like let's say you're about to meet a girl for the first time, you've been chatting for a while, there's definitely sexual tension, okay? First time you're meeting up. And let's say it's in a public place or whatever, or even a hotel room, it doesn't matter. You don't touch her. And it's like, my God, she wants you to touch her. And then maybe finally, like towards like maybe later on, maybe a couple hours go by. You haven't touched at all. And you purposely make it a point to keep your hands to yourself. Or you see her about to touch you and like turn and make it look like you were not purposely avoiding her, right? This is going to drive up the intensity because while that is happening, you're keeping the good sexual energy with your eyes. You're having the good sexual energy with your mind and your voice, your body language. You're just not touching. Or you purposely get close, so you're like sitting there at a table or side by side at the bar or something like that. She has her hand on the bar and you put your hands down, but it's like centimeters away from touching hers. And the electricity that will be built there, okay, from that discipline, okay, it's like you're disciplining her nervous system, like her central nervous system and her emotions, right? In the same way that you'd be like scolding and spanking a child for not too terribly, but just to kind of like discipline them or making someone do exercises as a drill, as some sort of punishment, like running laps or whatever. It's got that same level of intensity. It's not super discipline, but it's like tension just to get a point across. Okay. And so there, you could do that. Or when you finally touch, it's just a little bit on her hand, right? And because of the denial, because of the stretching out, just that little touch, okay, is going to send ripples through her whole fucking body, okay? Now, this is provided that it's the type of situation where there's definite high level of sexual attraction from her end, okay? Yours can vary. You can have high, medium, low. It doesn't really matter. But as long as hers is very high, okay, then you have a lot of creative agency here. And, you know, this kind of goes back to the other thing that I'm always mentioning, which is leverage, okay? Whenever there's high desire from any source, the person who has the solution to their desire automatically has leverage. And now it's up to you how you want to position that lever, okay? And when you do things like what I'm talking about, like dragging things out, you're not denying them, but you're not pushing, you're not pulling. This just lengthens the lever, and it makes it easier to lift that thing. The longer the lever, the easier it is to lift. So the time and the tension fluctuations, or the intensity, time and intensity, this is what makes that lever grow, okay? This is more discipline, right? And I'm telling you that there's lots of forms of discipline. This is disciplining her because you're saying, you're not in control here, honey. I am. I'm in control. And you're saying this without saying this at all. You're showing her, right? And this is what gets inside. This is what penetrates. This sort of stuff penetrates deeper than anything physical you could possibly do. Like you could have the roughest, toughest fucking flogger on this side of the fucking Mississippi, okay? It's not going to penetrate as much as burrowing into her mind with something as small as a fucking sewing needle. Just that she wants you to touch her and you deliberately place your hands next to hers 2 centimeters away, okay? It's going to burrow into her brain like fucking acid, okay? That's far more powerful, okay? So that's one kind of discipline, all right? Oh, it's just saying, I watch a lot of no-fap video. Really? Don't you need to just watch one? Like, they just say, hey, don't do it. End of video. You're like, gotta like watch like 2,500 of them. I'm sorry. All right, so you watch a lot of no-fap video. Okay. They say you never want to rid of the list, the last dragon, but control it and not letting your lust control you. Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I would just say that the science behind NoFap is extremely hearsay. There's nothing like repeatable. You will not gain superpowers. You know, I think everything that comes of that is placebo. I think the real way is to take a couple of guys, same age, same, you know, just try to get them to be the same as possible. And have one group as the control and one group as the variable. And so one group, you have them watch all kinds of NoFap videos, fill their fucking head with NoFap information. The others they should know nothing of the concept, okay? And you tell both of them, don't masturbate for like 3 weeks and see who gains superpowers, right? Who has like incredibly intensified focus, or, you know, they become way more productive. Like, are they going to be equal? Because they should be. But I have the feeling that the group that's watched all the shit has more going on because they believe it's going to happen, okay? The power of belief is extremely potent, okay? I use it all the time with my girls. Belief and perception can change physiological responses. Okay. I mean, my latest submissive, it's at the point now where in her orgasm training, that the time spent between the beginning of clitoral stimulation and orgasm is so short between when I say come now and the point when she starts rubbing is so short that I would say within like the next 2 weeks, it's going to be to a point where I can just talk to her, no stimulation at all, and then I'll say, come now, and she will have an orgasm. And it's because she started with the idea of believing that it could work. And then her physiology mixed with everything else that I'm leading her with and putting in her head and keeping her aroused and her imagination percolated, and then having varied all kinds of stuff with her emotions, okay? It all connects together, okay? And then you mix in earned orgasms, right? Like the other part of discipline. And now you've got something incredibly powerful that's psychologically occurring, physiologically occurring, right? All based on belief. Her body is responding based on a belief, okay? Now, is there a problem with NoFap? No. I mean, it's your dick. Like, if you want to pull it, don't pull it. If you want to, go for it. But like anything else in this world, if you cannot stop doing something that isn't a necessity, like drinking water, then you probably have an issue with that thing. But I would say that it's not the thing itself, okay? There's yes, alcohol is a poison, but the alcohol itself is not the issue. It's the relationship between the self and the alcohol. That's where the problem is. Why is there a problematic relationship? Because if it was the thing, then everybody would have problems with alcohol. Okay? That's not the case. If it was a problem with masturbation, then everybody would have a problem with masturbation. So it's not inherently bad. The issue is that space in between the self and the object. All right? Why is that relationship fucked up in the first place? So when cutting this off, it doesn't satisfy that thread in between. That thread still exists. You're just cutting off its ability to fully express itself. Okay? But it doesn't change the thread. It's still there. And that's why people relapse. That's why people fall off the wagon. Because they're not addressing that thread and having it trailing all the way back to the self and finding the root cause of that. Right? That's what the real issue is. Deal with that, then you can do whatever the fuck you want because there's no threads attached. You see what I'm saying? You can masturbate here or there. It won't do anything. But that's going to be even harder in your position because after watching lots of NoFap videos, okay, you are now forming beliefs. So now even if you were to deal with that thread and then do something, or you jerk off or whatever, now you've got guilt attached to it because you have all these beliefs formed around this thing. So you kind of fucked yourself in that way. I'm sorry. But it's much better to not deal with the symptom, but to deal with the cause for the addiction in the first place. Anyways, discipline and desire. So moving on to like the discipline and how that makes them feel. Okay, so this is like the other side of discipline. It's like what you guys are thinking about whenever you say, oh, well, in BDSM, there's discipline. Okay. I guess there's a couple, right? So there's the discipline of being disciplined in the sense of, I'm going to teach you how to be more rigorous. All right. Women are very chaotic, right? And I mention this, and I don't mean this in a critical way. It's just like the nature in my backyard is chaotic. You know what I'm saying? The trees grow all over the place. The grass is totally random. The bugs fly in random patterns. Water flows in random patterns. Is there anything wrong with it? No. Like, it's just naturing. You know what I mean? But it's not orderly. Unless you zoom way in, and then it's orderly, or you zoom way the fuck out and you're looking at nature from space and it's orderly. Everything's happening exactly the way it should be. But we're on this level of things, it looks haphazard, it looks chaotic. So women are the same way, you know? And again, if you zoom way into them, into their deeper psychology, or even if you wanted to go onto like a spiritual level, there's nothing out of place. Or if you zoom way the fuck out and look at women as part of humanity or part of this human experience, there's nothing wrong with them. But when you're at the eye-to-eye level, having these interactions, they just seem really chaotic. It doesn't make sense to us. And I believe that part of them, it doesn't make sense to them either. And this causes them anxiety, right? They have their being fluctuates. They're all about change, okay? Our change is very fast, super fast. We go through a hormonal cycle in 24 hours, right? So, and whatever you like, I was working with like a TRT doctor, and he was telling me that the hormones are like a second brain. So our like second brain cycles happen very quickly because we have to be ready for life. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to be bearing children and whatever. Women, though, theirs is a huge cycle. It's 28 days. So they have these long, drawn out, dramatic shifts. Okay? Ours are like super fast, slow arcs, or I'm sorry, shallow arcs. Their arcs are much bigger and they take longer. Okay? And so they'll be in a phase this week, and then a phase this week, and then a phase this week, and then a phase this week. And it's much longer. And even to them, they know that they feel fucking chaotic. All right? And it drives them insane. That's why when they're around certain men, it's a relief. Like my subs, I train them to not think. Not because I want them to be like a bimbo or something like that. There's no advantage to me for them. Well, sort of. But the main advantage isn't about me. The advantage is that through me, they get to fucking release from their own brain. Okay? Through following my discipline of staying on top of their shit. Okay? Monitoring the way they talk, the way they move, the way they think, the way they present themselves, how they communicate in all forms, everything. Okay? And it's not with like a rigid iron fist sort of thing. It's not like that at all. It's more like, it's guidance. Okay? So it's like putting up barriers, like barriers on a highway. Okay? Like when you're on the highway, you get like those steel or concrete guardrails. Okay? Do you feel controlled by those guardrails? No, you're not like forced to drive in a straight line. You know what I'm saying? But they're there. They're definitely guiding you and shaping the path in which you travel. But you don't feel coerced. You don't feel manhandled to drive in a direction. That's the way domination should feel. It should feel like guardrails guiding in a certain direction. Not saying, get the fuck over here, you're going in this direction or else. It's not like that, okay? Now, within the play, and once there's agreements and all that shit, like, of course, yes, things can go in that direction. Things can be that forceful. Things can definitely be that fucking controlling, all right? But the underlying foundation is really just a set of guardrails. And they have a choice. Just like you have the choice to drive on the highway, you can say, yeah, I'm getting the fuck out of here and I'm driving down the local roads, right? Women have the same freedom to either follow you or not, okay? But I've found that if you've got well-constructed guardrails, okay, and you don't bend, right? Yours are actually made of steel. They're not made out of fucking cooked ramen noodles. Or that are painted gray and they look like metal and you're like, hey, look at my fucking badass guardrails. I'm a man, right? No, like they actually are. And you don't have to talk about them, describe them, or explain them. Their presence is just known. You can feel it and they just know what to do. You don't have to explain shit, okay? And they get this from the feeling of being around you. That kind of discipline does something for them, okay? this level of discipline helps them calm down. Now, it doesn't drive it down into like inner peace. Okay, that's much more intentional on the dom's part. But what this does is it lays the foundation. Like, this is the consistent part. Okay, this is the part that never goes away. Like the fucking guardrails, they don't get moved. You know what I'm saying? They're laid in once and they stay there for fucking ever. And that's really what the truth is. So that kind of discipline allows her to breathe, especially if she gets the sense that it's not moving. It's not shifting. You're not wishy-washy. You're not changing your mind. You're not looking at her to see how she's reacting so you can be like, oh, okay, good. I made the right choice. Right? And I'm being dramatic, but that's how you guys act a lot. A lot of my clients act this way. And they've been with me for a long time and they're still like scared almost, or wary at the very least of what their woman's reaction might be based on something he has to say or a choice that he's making. And to try to prevent this, what they do is they try to go extra hard, you know? And it's like, nah, that's not it either, okay? Like extra hard things, they're actually quite brittle, right? That just reveals that you're grasping, you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard. I think, like, in my opinion, I think anyone who is studying to be a Dom should study Zen Buddhism. The concepts are so deeply intertwined, you would have no idea. I was studying Buddhism since I was 12. And so I've been on that path for much longer. And then coming into BDSM and understanding the optimal mindset for being a Dom and being able to run a dynamic, you basically have to have a Zen Buddhist mindset in a very real sense, not in the way that people make fun of or characterize Zen, but in the very real sense, the way it's intended to be, right? Which you will understand if you just study some of it and gain an understanding of the mindset. And it's very similar because you have to be in the middle way, okay? You know, like the Buddha, he said, you must be like incense, okay? You want to smolder. You don't want to be on fire and you don't want to be snuffed out. You want to smolder right in the middle, just like a lit piece of incense. And this is the optimal state of being. You're not intensely going in either direction, okay? And this lends to her discipline as well, okay? Again, that's like the guardrails, okay? They're not changing, they're unmoving, they're constant. You can rely on them without having to think about them. You know, like when you're driving on the highway, like how often do you think about the guardrails? You know what I'm saying? They're part of your awareness, but you don't really consider them at all, you know? So the same way should be with the foundation of trust with your domination, both within yourself and the trust that you get from her. It should be not really questioned, right? And if it is being questioned, that is not a problem, right? It's actually an opportunity. Like any problem, so to speak, that comes up is actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to open a door and unpack some things and learn more about yourself, right? Because you can't play this game without learning about yourself. You can't get by on ego. You can't get by on pride, right? You have to be willing for your identity to take some L's. And that's the way through. That is the pathway through. It cannot be mastered with bravado. It just can't, right? Bravado can take you far, okay? But it won't allow you to go very deep, right? Because in order for you to go deep within a woman where Like, that's where like all the juicy good stuff is. All right. Like, that's where, oh my gosh, like you guys just don't understand I wouldn't even call it a feeling because it's not really an emotion, but I'll just say feeling. You don't know what it feels like to experience a woman who is giving up her will to you. I don't know what it is. Maybe is it like a sense of pride in yourself, or and I don't mean like the boastful kind of pride, but like the sense of like a job well done, that kind of pride. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a very unique feeling that is not experienced anywhere else in life. And in order to go there, okay, to pierce the veil and go beyond, you have to be willing to go through that as well. Like, you can't go beyond the veil and remain safe. Okay? So it's probably best that you challenge your ego, you challenge your pride, you challenge your plastic sense of self before you go into these sort of things with a woman. Okay? Because what's going to happen is what's happened with a number of my guys before they become students of mine, right? Because I usually like talk to dudes for a little while, just chatting like on various messaging boards or various apps, and they tell me what they're getting into, and they end up getting into trouble. They end up getting into trouble with themselves and getting the woman screwed up. Okay? Or they bring her to a certain level and then like, oh shit, I don't know what to do, or I'm afraid to go further, or whatever. Something comes up that causes resistance, and then there's abandonment, cut off, and now this girl is left in the middle of the fucking desert, like emotionally, psychologically, right? And I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't even have fun getting there because you were too busy bumbling about trying to get it right so you can look cool to yourself. That's what you were using her so that you can fulfill an ego image reflection. Like, what the fuck is that about? So you use somebody to build a mirage. It doesn't even make any sense. Like, this is such a waste of time for everybody involved. And it causes harm. What the fuck? So it's like, should you not play if you're not like dialed in? No, I'm not saying that at all. Okay. But just be mindful, right? Because when you play, if there's people who like each other and all this stuff, things open. Things become vulnerable. Things become more trusting. And if you don't know what the fuck to do with that, or you don't care, it doesn't go anywhere, okay? And you're going to find that you're going to be completely unsatisfied, okay? That's how it was for me when I first started playing, okay? It was like BDSM for me was a purely physical thing. It was fun, right? But after having my interactions, whether it's like a private one-on-one, if I was at a dungeon, if I was at a play party, sex club, what have you, the satisfaction was fleeting. It was gone like the next day or even sooner, right? And so it wasn't fulfilling. I mean, it was very much, it's like, if you're hungry, you have a Snickers bar, and sure, like it quells the hunger, but despite their advertising, it really doesn't satiate. It doesn't satiate what you need. Okay, it doesn't go very deep. It doesn't really nourish you. Okay, and really, as humans, what's nourishing to us is having meaningful connection. Okay, and this goes beyond I think a lot of the bullshit that modern psychology talks about and the nonsense that you see on social media. I'm not going to get too much into that, but I wanted to make the point that it's just important to you don't have to look beyond just the physical. If you want to stay there, you're an empiricist, you're like, fuck, our five senses, this is all we've got, fine. Okay? Totally fine. All right? But you'll notice that you keep going back for another Snickers. You want another, and then another, and then another, and then another, because you're not being nourished by them at all. Okay? And so your blood sugar spikes, and then it drops. And then your blood sugar spikes, and then it drops. And you just go through that cycle forever. Like until you get bored or too old to eat Snickers bars, And that's okay. Like you can live your life that way. But I think there's more, And I think I think that's more desirable to people. I think that this whole I want to fuck around and hook up and all this stuff. Yeah, people do, but if you were to take each one of them and have a, private conversation, help them understand that nothing is said that will ever be recorded or repeated. There's NDAs and legal agreements and, they could sue me for $1 bajillion. Fuck, there's a mosquito in here. Then you'd be surprised that pretty much everybody is going to say, yeah, I would love to have a connection with someone who sees me, right? I would say practically every woman, unless she's got a lot of psychological damage, okay? I would say practically every woman would say yes. Do you want to have bounce from guy to guy for the next 5 years, or have a connection with somebody where you feel seen, where you feel safe, where you feel watched over? And being watched over, and you may understand that doesn't necessarily mean that you get what you want all the time, right? Because sometimes what's best for us doesn't always feel good, right? Sometimes our satisfying what we need doesn't necessarily satisfy what we want, okay? And sometimes when we get what we want, it detracts from our needs. And then sometimes needs and wants line up. But I think that the girls would say, yeah, I would much rather have that. Where can I find that? Right? And the thing is that it's nothing special. I really do think that the ability to lead is within every man. The ability to influence is within every man. It's not hard once you get out of your own way. That's pretty much the biggest problem for most men, is that there is this idea of self. There's these judgments, there's these beliefs, there's these perceptions, there's these held on to feelings, resentment, anger, pain, all sorts of shit, okay, that would be considered a part of the self, which it's not, and it's standing in front of you. And it's very hard to make moves. And any interaction that you have, because that's in front of you, every interaction you have goes through that membrane, thus being tainted by it when you interact with another person, especially the opposite sex, right? Because that has its own sort of meanings and desires and beliefs and feelings and all that shit, okay? A lot of it's subconscious, some of it's hindbrain. There's a lot there. But because there's this shitty you in front of you, it taints all of those interactions, right? Because the threads have to go through that, okay? All you gotta do is just work on dismantling that shit, okay? It takes time, it takes work. Sometimes it takes a professional, sometimes it takes a coach, sometimes it takes a family member, but it takes consistency and a desire to do so, and a bit of fearlessness, because it's kind of shitty sometimes, depending on what's happened in your life. Sometimes you might have, come to realizations about something terrible that happened to you that you've been burying for the past 20 years, right? But that's what's getting in your way. That's why you're looking for a certain something or someone, so that you don't have to feel that sore itch in the back of your mind, right? because that thing can take your awareness away from that, from feeling that, and now it's hyper focused on this person, right? Now you can give your attention to this, but that's just pulling you away. This is wasting your time when you need to be paying attention to that annoying itch or that painful itch, okay? Like if you have those pangs, those worries, that anxiety, like look past it. Look and see what's the source? What's the origination of this? And you'll find that when you start investigating that, you don't have anxiety, right? We have these like all these terms for these conditions and shit. And yes, some of them are real, but many of them are not. Like fucking social anxiety. Are you fucking kidding me? There's something inside you that hates itself and is afraid that other people are going to see the same thing that you see. That's your problem. You don't have fucking social anxiety. You have self-hatred. Now, why do you have self-hatred? What happened that caused you to form this belief about yourself that you're not worth shit? Where did that come from? How did you get to believing that? Who gave you this information? Because you didn't just come up with it on your own. Or there was a stimulus that made you believe this. So either it came in verbally or there was a situation that kind of proved it to you. You don't have social anxiety, right? You've got fucked up beliefs. But this is what I'm saying about piercing the veil. You are not really like a present man. You have these layers of fucking crud, right? Oh man. Hey, what's up, Mitch? I don't know if you're still in here, but thank you for swinging through. Shit, what was that anime? With Sen, not Howl's Moving Castle. It was the one with the witch. She had the big fucking head and a huge nose, and she had a giant baby and worked in a hotel. Oh shit, there was a boy who turned into a dragon. Come on, work with me, guys. Studio Ghibli movie. Spirited Away. That's what it is. Spirited Away. Okay. So if you've seen Spirited Away, and if you haven't, you should. That's a fucking incredible film. So this little girl, Sen, she's a human working in the spirit world in a hotel. And she accidentally lets in a spirit that shouldn't be there. And it's like a trash spirit or something like that. And it's in this bathroom. It's this giant stone bath, right? And he wants a bath. And everyone's afraid of it. And it's just this giant mass of mud and mold and old toys and tools. And I think there was a bicycle in there, and it was able to consume anything. It's I want more, because it was such a hurting sort of spirit, right? It was in so much pain that all it could do to just try to help a little bit was to consume. And that's why it was filled with junk, right? And the servants were bringing plate after plate with food, and it was just constantly eating or whatever. And then he wanted to take a bath, and they're oh, let's get the soap, and Sen put the soap in. And I don't remember the series of events, but it melted away, right? And all of that shit just melted off of him. And I think it might have had to do with a special soap that she got from the soap guy. And this broke the spell. And inside was just this spirit. And it was frail, it was small, wispy, the way you'd expect a spirit to be. And it gone, And I think it said thank you or something like that to Sen. And so everyone thought there was this being that was a certain way, but inside it was completely different, right? And it just wanted to be free. This is that muck, okay? That's what I would say, dare I say the vast majority of men, okay? Or just say a large amount of guys carry around with them. This is how they live, and to such a degree that they just think that they're normal this way. That they feel it's normal, or they're accustomed. Let's say that they're accustomed to feeling the way they feel, seeing themselves and the world the way they see themselves. Okay? And here's the fuck part. There's other people who share the same perspective. So it all seems normal because no one's abnormal. It's like there's this like subtle recognition of each other and saying, oh, you're like me. Yeah, you're like me. Like that meme of Spider-Man, like everyone, all the Spider-Man pointing at each other. It's like that, right? And like, oh, I know you, right? And it's filled up in the comment sections of like red pill videos. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, they're not free. They're not free at all. They think they are because they have adhered to some fucking fuckwad cultist mentality of looking at the world, okay? Giving you this promise of freedom. Yeah, you're really in the know, okay? Because the things I talk about with female nature, oddly, they never talk about it. Isn't that funny? All they talk about is the shit, right? The goblin side of female nature. They're like, women are terrible. I'm like, I wake up with blowjobs and coffee served from their knees. Like, I hear, yes, Lord, yes, Master. How can I please you today? Is there anything I can do for you today? How would you like me to serve you today? Or they don't even have to fucking ask, and they're just fucking doing shit. And say, I've done this, I've completed this, I've done this for you. How come you never see any videos of that shit? Never. Speaking of which, one of them just woke up. One second. Anyways, back to the muck, okay? Like, you have to do shit to get that stuff off of you. That's how you can arrive in this world authentically. Authentically to yourself, first and foremost. Because the thing is that when you are not showing up authentically, there's a little part of you that fucking knows that you're not. Even if the whole other part is convinced that you are, there's like this little gnawing idea that's like, you're full of shit. You're copying this whole fucking thing, right? And that's all that's necessary. That to have that little voice of wisdom, right? It's not self-criticism, as wisdom that can see you for what you are. Well, at least at that stage. But this is when you can break that apart. That's the beginnings. That's the wedge that starts. You could start wedging from there, okay? As long as you've got the fucking courage, right? You've got the balls to get into yourself and not be afraid of what you find there, okay? Because guess what's going to happen when you start going deep with a woman? If you're afraid of the dark, what do you think is going to happen when you see hers? I mean, all you red pillars know by now that women aren't sugar and spice and everything nice. When you fucking crack open their psyche, it's not like bubbles and unicorns come popping out. Okay? We're all human. We all have imperfect experiences of life. Right? So what do you expect when you go into their darkness? And you will if you actually want to lead them. You can't just lead them from the surface and think it's all good. It doesn't work that way. Leadership doesn't have any limitations on depth. It goes all the way the fuck through. And either you're fucking leading from all the way in the back, or you're not fucking leading. You're just giving orders. There's a difference between leading and giving orders. Not the same fucking thing. And you've been around people like that too. I know you have. I have. Like people who are giving orders, but they're not leaders. And you're like, fuck off. You're not convincing in the least. And then there's some people who are not commanders, but they know they lead without trying to be a leader. And you're inspired to get behind them. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna stand with this motherfucker. Like you feel them because they're coming from an authentic place. They're not trying to lead. They're just leading. And if you've got muck all around you between your essential self and what you show to the world, then there's no way that you're going to be able to lead cleanly, right? It's not going to work that way. Yes. Yes, getting to the root, and sometimes you need somebody else to get you there, right? That's just the way it goes. Oh, she's wondering how my day is going. Here's some meta shit right here. I'm streaming right now. Yes. I had her fucking hell. Fucking dog, man. So I was gonna play with her, right? Do some little bit like mental stuff and some conditioning stuff, some edging control and all this stuff, and then maybe like give her like a nice big orgasm. And it just didn't work out that way. She had to do some things, didn't communicate well, and so I was like, okay, yeah, like we'll play. But I just had her edge, okay? And that was enough. And then after I observed that, I said, there's something missing. And like, what's missing? And then she's like, oh, fuck, I missed my gratitude, right? Because like every single fucking thing has to have gratitude. Right? That's the whole idea. I gotta close this. Excuse me, just for a second, guys. Right. So it's like out of sight, out of mind with the fucking dogs. They can't see the thing to bark at. I'm not gonna bark. God. Oh, right. So the orgasm shit. And so I was like, yeah, you're missing the gratitude. And like that's a big thing with me. So I start off with that like laced into all of my training, okay? Because just be paying attention enough to even consider to train you. There needs to be gratitude because, and then once they start feeling it, like, oh, okay, so this guy like really knows how to lead me, like physically, emotionally, mentally, it makes sense to feel gratitude, okay? But sometimes they forget, especially when playing with themselves, because, it's partially my fault because in part of her training also is just mindlessness. Like she starts feeling pleasure on her pussy and it's like brain off and she doesn't fucking think. So I kind of like shot myself in the foot in that way, but I still want the gratitude. So I was like, what's missing? And she's like, oh, the gratitude. I'm like, do it again. And so she had to play with herself again to the point of orgasm and then stop. Okay. And I do this often. This is a great way for discipline. Like if you're at this level of like talking, like video play, sex stuff, okay, and you're very comfortable, just tell her, say, hey, you don't have to explain the orgasm control or anything like that. It's like, do you think you'd be able to stop yourself from coming? And like, what do you mean? They say, well, if you're playing with yourself, like, let's just say like with hands, because vibrators, they can get kind of out of control. But let's say you're just playing with yourself with your hands. Do you think that you'd be able to stop yourself from coming? Like bring yourself to the edge and like hold off, right? And you should probably be like, yeah, I think so. Okay. It's like, all right, great. So let's see if you can try. I think you should try. And then what? Yeah, let me see. Let me see you like bring yourself as close as possible to having an orgasm without happening. And then do it. Talk about it. Say, oh, how did that feel? Right? And she'd go into it, and she'll probably still be horny, and then get even hornier just talking about it. And then you can be like, I bet you can't do it again. Right? Or do you think you can do it again? Depends on like how you want to play it. And then she does it again. Right? And then you can playfully start giving commands, like, I think you should do it again. And then because the thing is, like, each time there's an edge, the next edge becomes that much more sensitive. Okay. It compounds, right? To the point where it's like, okay, on this next one, have an orgasm, see what happens. Right. And then it's like a fucking haymaker. It's like a George Foreman haymaker, right? It hits. Okay. And by the way, the same thing works with guys too. Like if you edge, then when you get to the orgasm, it's a lot more powerful. So yeah, had to give her that kind of discipline. And I was like, well, I was gonna let you come. And then I just like laid into like a little bit of a humorous guilt trip. It wasn't real guilt trip. And said, therefore, you're not gonna, I was gonna make you come, but now I'm not gonna play with you. And she felt like mild guilt from that. But this is the kind of discipline that's necessary. Like when it comes to the stuff, you can't be afraid of like hurting your feelings in that regard. Okay. Like if they're attracted and they're like following you at this point, you're pretty safe to do what you like, as long as it's like within those guardrails that I spoke of. Like within those trusted guardrails. Like you're not going to operate outside of those, right? And your consistency. So it's like, oh, okay, so I know that he's like denying me like this, then it's it's not the end of the world. It's like he's going to come back around, and I can tell you that when you have this kind of discipline involved, things change. Their relationship to sex, their relationship to desire and arousal and all that stuff, it's no longer just a thing that happens or a thing that they have control over. Okay, it's something that's entirely linked to you. Like you become the new pathway for pleasure, and you're the one who says you can do this and you can't do this, right? You're ready to play, you're not yet ready to play. You're ready to come, you're not ready to come, right? And depending on how sadistic you are, how masochistic they are, that opens up like a lot of variables. It opens up a ton of different variables about what and how you can go about that tease and denial of playing with that edge. Okay. It's all in the name of discipline, right? All you're doing is disciplining her body to react to you. Okay. You're disciplining her mind to react to you. You're disciplining her emotions to react to you. You become this massive conduit for like all of this stuff, right? And, if you look at like my trust video, you combine this with trust, she starts channeling more and more and more of her into your conduit. And till like her whole self is in there. And then she's like, she is you. She is like like this symbiotic extension of you. Makes me think of like the, what's it called? Venom, like how he had the symbiote, and they had this relationship where they were bonded, right? They were bonded, like, and when they were together, they were like one being, okay? And that's what it's like. And I'm telling you, when there's that level of trust, it beats out a fucking wedding ring, It beats out any kind of promise, because it's not something that you say. It's something that you create, something that you develop through your will, through trusting yourself, through going through the fucking, Dagobah swamp of your own fucking mind. Okay? But, you come through it and you can do so much more. You're so much more free. You're free from yourself. And you're like, damn, I'm fucking relaxed, like all the time. And now you have the power to bestow this upon other people, right? At some point in my training, I tell every single one of my students, I'm actually coaching you and training you to become a coach. That's what it is. I'm teaching you through your experience of me to get to know yourself, such that you will then take on the same skills that I've used on you, that you use on your woman or your women. So it becomes this teacher-student cascading of lineage, right? Just like the old school, like kung fu schools, right? It's a lineage of knowledge, right? So my students, they're off teaching their women, like all the same concepts. And that's being effective. Oh, what is she asking for? I'll take this as a silent approval for me to do it. Oh, what is she saying? Oh. I'll deal with this later. My apologies. So I hope this made sense, right? Desire and discipline. I must apologize. Like I start these things off with the intention of staying simple. Like, here's some examples of desire. Here's some examples of discipline. And in this shit, like, nothing is ever what you think it is. Like, nothing is ever as it presents itself on the surface, right? Even something as simple as a slap in the face can have depths of meaning. Can, not inherently does. So I apologize for that. My shit always goes off the fucking deep end. When I'm like, come on, Justin, just make something simple for the masses and they'll be happy. Here's 5 cheat codes to becoming a better dominant. Go. Some bullshit like that. Just shovel fucking bullshit into your ears just so, I get more views. I'm sorry. It's difficult for me. And, but that's what happens. It's like when you stop bullshitting yourself, you stop bullshitting other people, you stop bullshitting women, you stop bullshitting your family. It's like, everything just kind of, you have no choice but to just show up authentically, right? And you have some discomfort when you try to show up purposely inauthentically. It just doesn't work out well, okay? You feel like you're dishonoring yourself. So, but that's just me. Whatever. All right, guys. I think I've covered what I wanted to cover. So I'm going to leave it here. If you'd like to get my book on how to be a dominant lover, it's fantastically thorough. The links for it are in the description of this video and every other video. If you'd like to set up a time to talk for a free consultation, that link is in there as well. Otherwise, you can just go to my website, thedominancecademy.com, and everything is on there. Okay, I'll talk to you soon, and thanks for joining me on this episode of the Dominance Academy, and we'll see you next time.